4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're started.
Ooh, episode 5.
5, I think. 5. It's been
6.
over a month. I think it's 5. I'm pretty sure it's 5.
Dang.
Yeah.
Episode 5. Special celebration for episode 5.
Yeah, it's a big landmark. Episode 5. We're halfway to double digits on episodes. No. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about, we talked a lot last week about Kamala Harris, since that was kind of the big political news of the week. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about why we, or me at least, dislike her as a choice for vice president or president. And one of those big things was the story of Kevin Cooper, who was a death row inmate in California, and Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, called for a new DNA test because more evidence had come up on that story, and Kamala Harris blocked it. Basically, she didn't want another DNA test to kind of determine his innocence.
So how did the evidence end up coming out?
So I don't know specifically how the evidence that led to them calling for this DNA test was came out, but once the DNA test did come out, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he was proven innocent by the DNA test.
Yeah.
So Kamala Harris was basically just trying to keep a death row inmate on death row for those DNA tests are like $20. They can do them for $20. And yeah, that's crazy. So I think it's very hypocritical of her to try and say that she's all about criminal justice reform when she was in a position where she had power to do that, to reform that system. She was worse. She did stuff like that.
She was charging mothers for not sending their children to school.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, in communities like that, it's so important for children to have kind of parents, like in places where a child needs a parent to provide for them, like help with that. And she was sending parents to school for their kids, or not to school, to jail for their kids skipping school. Just blatant abuse of power in that position as DA.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing is, like, on both sides, like, that's such a damaging story, but like the Republicans are so focused on like, oh, you snowflakes, like you babies, like you socialists, like that's such a damaging story.
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like on the Republicans, or even both sides, focus on the wrong things.
The Democrats are better at focusing
they are better
on the right things,
yeah
though.
But the Republicans, it's weird. It's like there's very valid criticism of the Democratic candidates, and they go with,
Sleepy Joe
Biden, and
he can't form a sentence.
Nasty Kamala Harris, and just it doesn't make sense. You should go after that, and I think part of the problem is they might not be better on criminal justice reform.
Look at what Tulsi did. She took a jab at what you were talking about, and Kamala Harris's poll ratings went.
She was gone. Yeah, that tanked her campaign. So it's like, why aren't the Republicans focusing on that? One of the other crazy things that Harris did was so in California they use prison labor to fight fires.
Mm-hmm. I have heard about that.
She basically, she talked about how decreasing, I think it had something to do with decriminalizing drug use, or somehow getting these people out of prison would cripple California's like firefighting force. She wanted to keep people in prison longer so that they could be used in what really should be illegal. It's basically slavery. It is slavery. It's like in the 13th Amendment. They make $1 an hour. In the 13th Amendment, it says slavery is not legal unless it's for incarcerated. Like, incarcerated people are allowed to be enslaved. And she basically wanted to exploit that system to keep the firefighting force
That's
larger.
scary. Or how about when Bloomberg was running, it came out that prison labor was being used to make campaign calls, like random, telemarketer calls. Did you not hear about this?
I didn't hear about that
This
at
was
all.
a big story. So when Bloomberg was running, they I can't remember who came out with it. It had to have been some like the New York Times or the Washington Post, because it may have been Fox News. I'd be bad, but
It wasn't Bloomberg News.
yeah, it wasn't Bloomberg Media. But so he was using prison. He says he didn't know anything about it, but someone in his campaign knew about it, because they were using prison labor that's like contracted by, one of these massive like employment companies, but they were making like telemarketer calls from prison, like, hey, have you heard about Mike Bloomberg for president? He's gonna be the richest president ever.
Jeez, it's so crazy how a lot of the Democratic candidates ran on, I mean, not completely, but a major part of their platform was talking about kind of criminal justice reform and social issues like that. And then turn around and, I mean, you said Bloomberg was using prison labor for their calls. Kamala Harris has a record of exploiting prison labor or trying to exploit prison labor for them to be firefighters, like dangerous jobs. So they're in a place, they're just being exploited. And their record on that is pretty clear. Like Kamala Harris's record on that is pretty clear. And they still went with her for the vice president pick.
It's weird, huh? It's and Joe Biden. Joe Biden had here's like another big talking point the Republicans could use. Joe Biden had 8 years with Obama to enact criminal justice reform, they did nothing.
You did nothing. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but from what I understand, I feel like Trump has done more.
Yeah,
he passed
reform. A criminal justice, like he passed a bill, like an actual bill got passed, a bipartisan bill with the Senate.
And that's
Democrats
Trump.
and Republicans came together.
That's Trump, like the lowest bar. Like you barely need to do anything to top that bar.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that when Joe Biden was in power for 8 years.
Van Jones, do you know him? He's a CNN contributor.
I think so.
So they were having this big convention. I believe he was a part of this criminal justice reform bill. Like he was like what's it called? Those people that special interest people,
like
that
a lobbyist
or whatever
yeah.
for it. So they were having like this party convention, whatever. Trump was going to be there. He wasn't holding it. It wasn't like the Trump campaign doing it, but Trump was going to be there. A bunch of high up like Democratic people were going to be there, like I think Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all those guys, a bunch of Democratic senators. Kamala Harris was going to refuse to go because Trump was going to be there. And Van Jones, who is a CNN contributor, as liberal as they get, he's fought for criminal justice his whole life.
Oh, yeah.
As liberal as they get, he went on CNN and burned Kamala Harris. He was like, this was such a great thing. Like how are you just not going to support anything that one person does?
Well,
like you can take the good and the bad.
That?
Like you can take the good and the bad for Trump. Like when he does something good, you don't have to balk at him. Like I don't get it.